Hey everyone, in this video, I want to show some Cherwell 8.1 support in Cortex. But before we get to that, I want to remind everyone that the Cortex users group is every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can find a link down in the video description to request an invite to that. It's basically a time you could talk to me or anyone else who's using Cortex uh, about our experiences and even see some sneak peeks into what we're building next, both in Cortex and potentially in some future products that might appear um, soon, very, very soon. We've been working on some things kind of in the background that we're really excited about. And yeah, we'd love to get your feedback on them. So, Cortex Users Group, 10 a.m. Pacific, every Tuesday. So, let's get into looking at some 8.1 databases. So here's Cortex. This is kind of an alpha version of 1.7, actually running on my development machine um, because the demo site is running, it's a demo 2023.1, I think. Um, so that's the database version that I started building Cortex to from the very beginning. Cortex is very, very compatible with newer versions, even uh, obviously the newest versions of content, but also content that you have been upgrading through the versions. And so I guess that would be considered the platform version. So if your platform version is relatively new, Cortex is very, very compatible with that, even if your content version is very, very old. On the other hand, if your content version is old and your platform version is also old, there were some features that were released in the, I think I've said this multiple times, in the 9.4, 9.5 range, somewhere in that time frame, and that kind of changed how the configuration was stored. Specifically, those being adaptive layouts and globalization. Those significantly changed the size and the shape of the configuration. So in this database, I have an actual 8.1 czar. I didn't update it to a newer platform version. This is the actual czar that shipped with 8.1, just restored to a database with no changes whatsoever. Just the information in that czar onto a SQL server. So as raw as it possibly could get. So if you are still running Cherwell version 8.1, Cortex will work for you because it works on this database. So I'm not going to search for anything. I'm just going to go straight to browse. And I'm actually going to play around with change request. Change request has been one of the more problematic uh, business objects in the 8.1 database. Uh, and in fact, in the either the last video or the video before, I actually showed how I worked on some of these buttons to make them do some helpful things. But I also mentioned that related change down here looked very ugly. There was a lot of red, basically indicating that some of those form fields. Actually, let me get my face out of the way. There you go. So you can actually see now that form shows up. Uh, it's all blank because there is no related change. But in uh, previous versions of Cortex, in fact, in Cortex 1.6, this would break and would show a bunch of red error messages simply because there was no related change. So that is fixed now. And that same sort of behavior showed up in a few other places, um, but we fixed that. And we added this new whatever you want to call it, form viewer, a form chooser. By default, if you browse to a record or even search for a record and drill into it, you will see the full form arrangement. You'll see the main form, the tabs. In newer content, you'll see the summary form, and the first tab is the overview form, and so on and so forth. But you'll see the configured form arrangement. But now you'll also see this drop down, so you can see individual forms. So you can see what the review normal form looks like. You can see uh, schedule emergency. Now, what's weird is I don't think this particular change is an emergency change, but you can still see the form for it because obviously it's the same record, all the same fields, that sort of thing. Um, so this will be particularly helpful if you want to, say, go back and see what a particular form looked like in Cherwell after you've already moved off of Cherwell. It's really hard to see what the form actually looks like without any data. So that's why it's on this browse screen and not, down in like browse one steps or something like that. Because we want to show you what it looks like with actual data in it, because that'll be actually useful to you. Uh, yeah, and you can see pretty much any form that is in the default view. We're not currently supporting portal forms. Uh, Main reason for that is because we haven't really supported portal anything to this date. Um, that could change, uh, but for right now, at least, we're only showing the forms that you would see in the technician view. Um, yeah, it. What you want to see more? I think this is pretty cool. Uh, it's also helpful for us. The more we show in the tool, the more edge cases we run into. Um, so I enjoy building things like this that are super simple, super useful for you all, but also help us see, potential edge cases, potential things that could break. They might not be, they might not show up on the way that Cherwell would show things by default, but on some other database, we'll run into a specific issue. Uh, so we can kind of force the system to show us this particular form with this particular data and also make sure that it works. So it's fun for us. It's value for you. Um, and this was actually a customer request. So I should reiterate that most of the stuff that we're working on right now is motivated by customer requests. Either direct customer requests where people say, I want to see X, Y, and Z in Cortex, or kind of indirect things where we realize that things are harder than they should be just by watching you use Cortex. Mainly as people get it set up and kind of click through to make sure that everything looks right, we notice usability issues and that sort of thing. Um, we've had uh, a couple indirect asks, like the drop down uh, of values for validated fields, so like statuses and that sort of thing. Um, we noticed people were having trouble typing those in. So we added a drop down because we know what those values are going to be. So let's just make it easy. Um, so we continue to make improvements like that. Uh, and 1.7, Cortex 1.7 is going to be no different. I feel like every version of Cortex, I say this is the version that has by far the most features, and feels like we're just like doubling the size and the number of features in the product every single version. And 1.7 is no different. I feel like over the last week or two, we've we've implemented as many features and bug fixes as we did in the entire 2 months leading up to the release of Cortex 1.6. So we continue to accelerate our pace. Uh, we continue to improve the product and make it more and more incredible. I'm biased, but I think it's incredible. I think it's awesome what we've done over the last year, and we're not stopping. We're continuing to go. So if you're thinking of uh, using something like Cortex or debating whether you should use something like Power BI or Tableau, again, I'm biased, but I think Cortex blows those tools out of the water. Um, Absolutely, being able to see the Cherwell data exactly the way you saw it in Cherwell, um, and even beyond that, being able to print it, being able to see additional forms, I think that's pretty awesome. If you think that's awesome as well, go ahead and give this video a like. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe. Again, if you want to talk to other people who are using Cortex or talk to us as well, uh, click the link down below to request an invite to the Cortex users group. You can also see a demo of Cortex. There's a link down below to view a demo of Cortex and get all sorts of other information about Cortex, documentation, features, information that you could give to your management or your purchasing department to justify to them that Cortex is a worthwhile investment. And if you want to talk to us as well and get our word for it and get a specific conversation around your specific database, there's links down below to schedule time on my calendar as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.